The cafeteria hummed with the low, familiar noise of 100 conversations layered over clattering trays and the scrape of boots against tile. It was lunch hour, controlled chaos, regulated by routine and rank. Soldiers filled the long metal tables in neat rows, uniforms pressed, posture drilled into muscle memory. This was neutral ground, no shouting, no drills, just food and 15 minutes of borrowed calm. She sat alone, not because there was no space, but because no one had chosen to sit there yet. Her tray was untouched. Steam curled lazily from the food, as if time itself hesitated around her. She sat straight, backed, hands resting lightly on the table, eyes forward, not scanning, not watching, simply aware. Her uniform was standard issue, no visible flair, no exaggerated insignia, clean, perfect. Anonymous, that anonymity was what drew attention. A group of SEALs entered together, loud in the way only confidence allows. They moved like they always did, loose, controlled, owning the space without trying. Laughter bounced off the walls. Someone slapped another on the shoulder. They spotted an open section near the center and dropped their trays down across from her without hesitation. She didn't look up. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of them noticed. "Hey," the SEAL across from her said, narrowing his eyes slightly. He was mid-30s, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who'd earned every inch of his reputation. "You knew." She lifted her gaze slowly, calm, measured. Her eyes met his, not defiant, not submissive. "Neutral, yes," she said. Just one word, clear, unadorned. A few of the others exchanged glances. New faces were common. This presence wasn't. "Unit," another asked, already chewing. She paused half a second too long. "Assigned," she replied, that earned a chuckle from the end of the table. "Assigned where?" Someone pressed. She took a sip of water before answering. "Here." Silence crept in. Not sudden, but noticeable. The SEAL who'd spoken first leaned back slightly, studying her more closely now. Her accent was clean, her posture perfect. "No nervous habits, no fidgeting. What's your rank?" he asked casually, though his tone had sharpened. She set the cup down carefully. Around them, other conversations continued, but nearby heads had started to turn. Soldiers were good at reading rooms. Something was off. She glanced at the patch on his shoulder, then back to his face. "And yours?" she asked. A few eyebrows lifted. "Petty officer, first class," he said without hesitation. Not bragging, just fact. She nodded once, as if filing it away. Another pause. "You are." He prompted again, slower this time. Forks froze midair at the surrounding tables. The cafeteria noise dipped, not fully silent, but thinned, like the air before a storm. She inhaled quietly. "I don't usually discuss rank over lunch," she said. That did it. A low murmur rippled outward. A soldier 2 tables over leaned forward. Someone near the back turned fully in their seat. The SEAL's jaw tightened, not offended, but intrigued. "Then what do you usually discuss?" he asked. She finally touched her food, cutting a small piece with deliberate precision. Mission readiness, accountability, and whether people remember who they're sitting across from before they speak. The words landed heavier than they should have. The SEAL laughed once, short, sharp. "Careful," he said. "You're talking to operators." Her eyes didn't leave his. "So am I." That earned full silence. Every sound seemed to evaporate. The clatter, the chatter, even the hum of the lights overhead. Dozens of soldiers now watched openly. No one pretended anymore. The SEAL leaned forward, elbows on the table. His voice dropped. "Then humor me. Rank." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood. Chairs scraped back nearby as instinct kicked in. A senior officer at another table turned fully around. Someone near the serving line stopped mid-step. She didn't raise her voice, but when she spoke, it carried. "Before I answer," she said evenly, "understand this. Rank isn't what gives authority. Responsibility does. She paused, letting that sink in. Then she met his eyes again. And you just questioned yours. The SEAL opened his mouth, and that was when the cafeteria doors opened behind them. Heavy, deliberate, footsteps followed, and every instinct in the room snapped to attention, to be continued. The footsteps didn't rush, they never did. Leather soles struck the tile in a measured rhythm, unhurried, deliberate, unmistakable. The kind of walk that didn't announce itself loudly because it never needed to. Every head in the cafeteria turned toward the sound, training overriding curiosity. A senior officer entered, dress uniform. Perfect lines, ribbons aligned with surgical precision. His presence alone bent the air. Conversations died instantly. Chairs scraped back as soldiers stood at attention in near unison. Trays abandoned, forks clattering to metal. All rise, someone whispered, unnecessarily. The officer stopped just inside the doorway and surveyed the room with a calm, assessing gaze. His eyes moved like radar, taking in posture, alignment, discipline. Then they stopped. On her, she was still standing, not at attention, not relaxed, balanced, like a loaded weapon on safe. The officer's gaze lingered for a fraction longer than protocol allowed. Then something subtle happened. His expression changed, not shock, not anger, but recognition. He stepped forward. The SEAL across from her straightened instinctively, blood draining from his face. He hadn't even realized he'd been holding his breath until his chest burned. The officer stopped beside the table, at ease. He said quietly. No one moved. He repeated it firmer, at ease. Chairs creaked as soldiers sat back down, though their backs remained straight, eyes forward. The room felt smaller now, compressed by anticipation. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am," he said. That single word hit like a thunderclap. Every head snapped back toward her. The SEAL's eyes widened. Someone nearby muttered, "No way." Another whispered, "Did he just?" She inclined her head slightly. "Respectful, equal, sir," she replied. The officer gestured subtly. "Would you like to clarify for the room?" She exhaled slowly. "Not nerves, Control." She turned back to the table of SEALs, to the man who had asked the question. "You wanted my rank," she said evenly. "You deserved an answer." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I am a commander." The word landed hard, not shouted, not dramatized, just stated. A commander, not a lieutenant, not a trainee, not an advisor. A commander. Someone dropped a utensil. The clatter echoed like a gunshot. A few soldiers stiffened visibly, recalculating everything they'd said, everything they'd assumed. The SEAL swallowed. "Commander." He repeated, disbelief creeping into his tone. "Yes," she said, "assigned joint oversight, operational evaluation." The officer beside her spoke again. "She reports directly to Fleet Command." That did it. The cafeteria was no longer merely quiet. It was stunned. Eyes darted, minds raced. Every interaction from the last 10 minutes replayed in fast-forward regret. The SEAL pushed his tray aside slowly and stood. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady but humbled. "Permission to speak freely." She studied him for a moment, not unkindly. "Granted." He nodded once. "I misjudged you." A pause. "And I shouldn't have." She accepted the words with a simple nod. "Correct, not cruel, not smug, honest." The officer glanced around the room. "Let this be a reminder," he said calmly, "that authority isn't always loud, and leadership doesn't announce itself." He turned back to her. "Your assessment." She looked across the cafeteria, at the soldiers frozen between discipline and awe, at the SEALs who now understood exactly who had been sitting across from them. "Valuable," she said. "Unplanned, honest." A faint smile touched the officer's lips, barely there. Then it served its purpose. She sat back down, not because she had to, because she chose to. The SEAL followed, slower this time, movements careful. Around them, conversation slowly resumed, but quieter, more restrained. The atmosphere had shifted. Something fundamental had been corrected. As she picked up her fork, the SEAL cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, Commander," he said. "That was impressive." She glanced at him briefly. "For what it's worth," she replied, "you handled the correction well." That, more than the rank, earned his respect. But across the room, unseen eyes watched closely, and not all of them were impressed. Some were threatened. The cafeteria never fully returned to normal. Conversation resumed, yes, but cautiously, like soldiers moving through unfamiliar terrain. Laughter came softer. Jokes ended quicker. Every clink of a tray sounded sharper, more deliberate. The air still carried the echo of what had just happened. She ate in silence, not because she felt awkward, but because command had taught her that silence often spoke louder than words. Around her, soldiers kept glancing over, then snapping their eyes away as if caught staring at a live wire. Respect, confusion, curiosity, it all mixed together. The SEAL across from her hadn't touched his food again. Finally, he spoke. "Commander, may I ask something?" She didn't look up. "If it's appropriate." He nodded once. "Why sit here alone? No escort, no announcement." She finished her bite, wiped her hands calmly, then met his eyes. "Because," she said, "I don't evaluate readiness from offices. I evaluate people where they're most honest." A few soldiers nearby pretended not to listen and failed miserably. He exhaled. "So this was a test. For you," she replied. "No, for us." Another SEAL asked quietly. She considered that, for the system. The words carried weight. Across the room, the senior officer remained standing near the wall, arms loosely behind his back, observing. He'd said little since the revelation, but he didn't need to. His presence alone reinforced the shift that had occurred. A young Marine at a nearby table leaned toward his friend. She just walked in and flipped the whole room without raising her voice. "That's command," the friend whispered back. The SEAL pushed his tray away fully now and stood again, this time with intention. "Commander," he said clearly, "on behalf of my team, permission to apologize." She rose as well. Instantly, chairs scraped back across the cafeteria. The sound traveled like a wave. Soldiers stood, not because protocol demanded it, but because instinct did. She studied the SEAL for a long moment. "Apologies are easy," she said. "Growth is harder." He nodded. "Then we'll do the harder part." That earned something rare, a smile, small, brief, genuine. She turned slightly, addressing the room now, not loudly, but with a tone that carried authority forged through action, not ceremony. "Every one of you here earned your uniform," she said, "but never confuse skill with entitlement. The battlefield doesn't care who you think you are, only who you actually are under pressure." No one breathed. "Respect," she continued, "isn't about rank on a chest. It's about restraint, awareness, and knowing when to listen." The senior officer stepped forward at last. "Well said," he murmured, then louder, "Return to your meals." Slowly, soldiers sat. She picked up her tray. "I have a briefing," she said simply. The SEAL stepped aside without being asked. "Commander." She paused, then inclined her head. "Petty officer, equal respect." Earned. As she walked toward the exit, the room followed her with their eyes. Not in awe now, but understanding. She hadn't dominated the cafeteria, she had corrected it. At the doorway, she stopped and looked back once more, not to check who was watching, but to make sure they'd understood. They had. The doors closed behind her with a soft final sound, and just like that, every soldier in the room sat a little straighter, because leadership had walked among them and left a mark.